Okay, so I think we are online. Um, I think I need to edit the title to Saturday, and I believe it's the 24th. Yeah, okay. Okay, posted the link on Discord. So, let's see here. I think audio should be good. Let me check that. Yes, audio is good. Visual is good. Um, I can see the chat there. If there are anyone like this. I'm just setting up my secondary monitor here, like this, so I can see what's happening. um, Let me just light up one of these. Oops. Okay, so yesterday's Arnold Friday Cafe got turned into today's Saturday cafe. Unfortunately, I had a cat that gave birth to 4 dead kittens. So and that clashed with the stream yesterday almost perfectly. So that's the reason. But yesterday, I guess a bit before the stream started, uh, one of the guys from the chat last Friday, Yuri, um, uploaded a scene to the Discord, to my Arnold Converter Discord channel, and he had a little bit of issues with lightning his model. He's basically I don't know the backstory of this, but he's basically trying to redo a scene that looks, I guess, somewhat like this. Um, so I guess he he modeled something. He copied out some of the details, some of the main functionalities in the room, and was kind enough to upload it to me. So I spent an hour today looking at the scene. This is not the renderer that he did. This is a reference. I have no idea where this is coming from. But the main idea is that I created the lightning from scratch in all its elements, and I will attempt to go through what I did, what you need to pay attention to, and some practical tools in 3D Studio Max and Arnold to get some light scenario that resembles this reference image here. All credits to the artist that made this. I have no idea who it is. So we'll take a look at it once in a while. um, so let's see here. So he built the scene here and sent it to me. Let me go out of this one, the camera. So the first thing I noticed was that the scene actually came with the back off, um, and I would definitely recommend when you make interiors, always make sure that you model it correctly so there's no leaking, because if you for some reason had a skylight, you would have a huge opening here that would give a false interpretation of reality. So let me just pop that in there again. I jumped into the camera. You can see here we have, if we go to the image here. So what I did was that I identified all the light sources in the scene. There's no obvious skylight here. So the first thing I noticed is these up near these wooden planks here. We have some rectangular area lights, as I interpretate them, going on the long side here and on the long side here, and that's why this is so wide. We have a shadow from that one here. So I made a light group in Arnold, and I'll show that. Put them into one light group. Then the lamp here is another light group, and then we have these lights in these bed furnitures here. There's one here, there's one down here, and we have the front panel here. Then we have 3 lights hanging here, and we have these ceiling lights up here, 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 here. And we have 2 small lights in the background here. So let's try and bring up some render interface here. And the scene came in with this one off, so it would the render would automatically go to the old school production render window. So what I did is just enabled the Arnold render view. So we always start up in this window here. We have the images here, and then added a light mixer. And if you're not familiar with the light mixer, Arnold comes with a small utility that makes it possible to group lights together and change their intensity, their color ad hoc when you're lighting any kind of scene. And I made a group called table lamp, top hidden, bed table backlights, the 3 lamps, ceiling spots, 2 spots, and under the bed. So while we have that, we also have another group. That is the emission. In Arnold, it's called emissions. Other renderers can call it self-illumination. But that's basically the front face of these small spotlights here. And I believe this area light down here, if you set an Arnold light to let me fetch it here. If you set this one to light shape visible, it will propagate into the residual lights. This is the residual lights is basically emission, and it also includes the light shape. So I created these groups here, turning them on and off, and I added the OptiX um, denoiser for look dev, quick look dev. When we go around and grade the image, we want a reasonable fast render, um, and um, and so we don't have to sit and wait forever. There's a guy here, Mahi. Hello, hello to you too. Good evening to you from Denmark. So that's basically it. And the way it works, this light mixer here is that whenever you open up some new lamps in the Explorer here, they will automatically be loaded in this side of the window, the light group manager. Um, if you go in here, you can always fetch it here, and the light mixer, you just add it here. So all the lights get propagated here automatically, and you can drag them over here. You can make a new group up here as you feel fit, name them, rename them, delete them. So that basically covers the light mixer setup in the basics. So let us close that one down. I will try and hit render here, and this is rendering on the GPU. As you can see here, there's no real input unless I start to open these layers, these light layers up. And as you can see here, the area light under the bed here, these three little lamps and the top ceiling lamps are nested in this residual lights. So they don't come out this clean if you just jack up an emission, because I'll show you something here that's very important. So if we take, let me see if we can fetch one of these. Let's see here, like this. That was not it. Let me go here. Something like this. Make sure we fetch it. Like this. Going to unhide all here again. So this lamp up here, the traditional way you do it is you slap on an emission on the bottom of this one to make it simulate a light source, and then you put some kind of actual light source beneath it. That's the kind of, I guess, the preferred method to do. But you have one serious issue doing that, and that is that if you do it, this is how you normally would do it. A physical material, you can see it's all white here. I cranked up the emission to full. Let's try and start this render again. And as you can see here, all these small, well, let me disable the denoiser here. So all these fireflies here are incredibly expensive to render. You need to let it render for a long time if you just send out emission directly to a surface and start to illuminate the scene. So so what I can do here, I could go into the render settings here. For the sake of debugging, I keep this at 0, and I enable the adaptive and progressive sampler, set it to 1. um, when setting up lights, because it's not instant, but it's very fast. All the details won't come out, but we can just crank the bottom up and the top up a little bit, and once we get a better situation going. So I can just try and do that momentarily. Let some more samples get in there. As you can see here, these it's just slow. It's 26%, 31%. I mean, you could light a set with just emission, but with Arnold, it's going to be very slow, and I guess other engines as well. So what we want to do is we want to split out this actual camera ray, because these pixels here are only needed for the direct camera, not illuminating on the walls here. And the easiest way to do that is just take your emission material and use an Arnold, I'll see here, Arnold ray switch shader. You don't need to do anything with it. You just need to pipe it to the camera, and you basically intercept the signal, and close out all the other rays: volume, diffuse reflection, diffuse transmission, specular reflection, shadows, and so on. Because we're only interested in getting this white area up here. We don't want it to contribute to any GI, as it will slow down the rendering significantly. Um, so so with that one on, as you can see here, if I go back here, we should get the GPU running again. Maybe not. Maybe it's crashing. I'm not so sure. And we just have to take these things as they come. I saved the scene so we can be back here quickly. Let me see here. Yeah. This one. No, there's something preventing me from doing something. Let me close this one down. Oh yeah, okay. That was a considerable amount of lag for some reason. So let me start this one up. Okay, and we got our lights going here without a huge amount of pollution. So let me just set this one back again to 0 and 1. And we should be good to go. So so that was it for the emission. Let's try and turn on one of the lights. We could start with the top hidden lamps. Actually, I want to disable this one. I want to enable the top hidden lights. So as you can see here, the only light I have on right now is these long rectangles here. And let me just close this one for a moment. I'll show it to you. So the lamp is actually setting up here. It's very thin, and the reason why it's thin is because the shadows, the penumbra, this shadow here, the wider you make the lamp, the more blurry this edge will be. So that's why I made it, I just eyeballed it. So let's go back to the camera here. Let's go into the renderer. something like this. And it took 6 seconds. So I'm going to enable the denoiser here. And you can say, yeah, this is very blurry, but it doesn't matter when you set up a light scenario. The only thing you're interested in is getting the relevant data to you as quickly as possible. And as you can see here, if I go to one of these, let me see here, if I just move the camera just ever so slightly, it's going to update something like this. And we have a pretty reasonable image. We're not so interested in the details because that's not our main focus right now. Our main focus right now is to get the same behavior as the light up here. And I think we got that. We got the relative sharp shadow down here, and we have a sharp shadow here. Again, if you increase the width of the area lamp up here, it will make the shadow here more blurry. So we can enable the residuals, and as you can see here, they aren't illuminating the scene. They're purely for visuals. So so what's next? We could enable the table lamp here. I got that one there. You can see here it's pretty easy to get these things going really fast. Let me see if I can fetch it. I managed to fetch it. So I can close this one down, and we can try and see where we want it. 66 is obviously way too strong. A bed lamp. So one thing when lighting an interior, you always need some kind of base reference point, because otherwise you will end up with some lights being cranked over, other lights being too low, too soft. So what you want to pay attention to is that what are the main light source what are the main light sources here? Well, it's not this because it's strong. It's actually the long lights up here and then these spots here. So we want to make a base around these lights, and we adjust the small lamps and this stuff down here according to the main drivers up here. So let's see here. Maybe we shouldn't take the bed lamp then. Let me just put this one to 4 or something. Something like this. Let me disable it. So we have the top lamps. We have the ceiling spots. These are the ceiling spots. Something like this. I haven't split out the residual lights. I could do that, but as you can see here, right now, these ceiling spots, they're basically they're an Arnold light. It's a spotlight with a fairly fine cone angle and a soft penumbra to make it more smooth. And that's basically it. So all these lights are now contributing with some kind of intensity. There are, of course, this one, these 3, and these 2, of course, nested in the group called ceiling spots. So we have the top hidden light, and we have the ceiling spots here. I consider these more like a fill. You can see the sofa or the bed here gets a little bit illuminated, not too much. That's the same here. We're receiving some light here. Actually, I think this guy made there's maybe a door out here or a window or something. Something is hitting the light from behind the screen here. I did not add this one. Um, so now we have two light groups going. Why don't we try and enable the two lights behind here? So those are the two spotlights. Those are basically just normal spotlights. Um, um, you can see in this render here, they're very wide. We could use IES files to a profile. Using profiles, you could also use profiles here, but I didn't do that. I just made it for made it simple. Um, so don't pick too much focus on that these are round, these are more sharp in it. We can go in and look at that at another time. But let's see here. Where was it? Those are the two spots. So let me just see here. Mahesh asks, what is the difference between Optic X denoiser and normal denoiser? Well, I can show you. We can when we have all the lights enabled, we can try and switch to the other one. Basically, the Optic X, this one, this denoiser, is running on the GPU. I am rendering this scene on the GPU. But we also have another one, this one, denoise noise. It used to be just an exe file. The exe file comes with Arnold. That's basically what's happening when you use it. It's a CPU denoiser. It has a higher quality. It uses more passes. And it has one significant detail, which is temporal stability, which means that if there are some kind of splotches or inaccuracies in the final image, if you move through animation, those artifacts will stay in place, and it will basically mean that you can render an animation significantly faster with lower settings without having a ton of stuff jumping around. For example, if you look at this, these are OptiX denoiser artifacts. It's basically because we stopped the render so fast. It rendered for 3 seconds. We are allowed to render interiors at a bit longer times. With the additional kick-in that we get a better quality. We can actually try that. Let's just pump this to 2 and this to 4, for example. So now it's not going to take 3 seconds. It's going to take maybe 20, 30 seconds. Right now, one thing I want the developers to look at is to make the OptiX pass blend smoothly, so we see it right now. As you can see here, when this one hits 100, sorry, the Optic X denoiser kicks in. Ideally, we want to have Arnold iterate on it and just show us the Optic X. So as you can see here, the image is significantly better. There's only a little bit of splotch here and here, and the image rendered for 28 seconds. So while this increased quality is nice, it really doesn't do anything but slow us down when we work with the lights, because the image will look the same, more or less, light-wise, whether everything is rendered out in detail or it's coarse. So Mahesh has a follow-up question. Does it need AOVs like NP albedo? Well, whatever this GPU denoiser is doing and the CPU denoiser is doing is currently under the hood. But you are correct. Both of them needs an additional EXR with additional channels, like for example, like you mentioned, normal, not precision, but more the C position from the camera and the albedo. So in the start, we had to fabricate those things manually and pump it into the exe files on the disk. But they streamlined that, so it's more automatic. I'm going to go back to my speed settings here. Something like this. The image looks more or less the same. We just have the image in 3 seconds. So it's more convenient to work with when setting up the lights. So let's check here the light mixer. We came from the 2 spots, that's correct. Then we have light from under the bed. That's actually down here. So I can turn off the residuals and you can see this is GI light. That's also why the bed is starting to get some illumination on this front side, because we have a wall behind us. The light is bouncing off that wall and into the bedpost here. Let me just turn on the residual light again. Turn off these guys here, and then we have we have the bed lamp here. And as you can see here, the reason why it's so blown out is because the guy that made this rendering used an exposure, cranked up the exposure and contrast. That gives like a burned in glow or bloom or whatever you would want to call it. It's perfect. It's not perfectly white. It's almost white. While these are more soft. So that's an indication that the guy here, I'm not saying this is the best rendering in the world, but it serves as an illustration. And we can kind of like see that the lights up here are very soft compared to this one, and the light under these tables and this one in specific as well. It's very blown out. It's very hard white here, and then then we see some fall off over here. So I would say that this guy has some more intensity in the lamp here and these 2 lights here than he has on these lamps up here, because if he would have the same intensity, everything would be blown out completely. There's a little bit of blowout here, and that's fine. That's perfectly okay. So we have the bed lamp here. You can see there's some GI going on here. Obviously, the OptiX denoiser is running 3 seconds here, but I am doing this is a little bit provocative because I want people to actually endorse this workflow, because it's instant. It's almost instant. It takes 3 seconds to get a view over it. You can crank it up ever so slightly, and it will take a couple of seconds more, look better. But there's no reason in doing that when we go over the lights here. So you can already see that the quality improved. There's less splotching. So let me just return to here. Again, diffuse 3 bounces. I find 3 bounces is sufficient for interiors. You can crank it up 4, 5, 6 if you really need it, but it's going to take a little longer. The adaptive threshold, the standard, it comes with 15. Sometimes I like to lower it to 0.005. So that was it. Regarding some additional render settings. Let me turn off this one, and we have the bed lights bed table lights. Let me go back to the table lamp again actually. I want to show you the table lamp here, how I set it up. Just put a point light in here, and we can work with the intensity and exposure. And note that all my lights have 3 samples here. The stock is 1. All lights comes in with 1, but I find that if we crank it to 3 samples, it's like kind of like a sweet spot. Samples means less noise in same time. So, but at a point, you won't get any significant gain from it. You will only start to slow down the renderer. So I just find that 3 samples seems to be adequate for interiors in general. So that's all these lamps. They are all 3 samples. So that was for the table lamp. So we go here, something like that. And we have the backlights. Those are basically, I know it doesn't look exactly like this guy's blown out stuff here, but you can play around with these just like you want. I put in some area lights. I can show you like this. It's basically just an area light I put in there, and I put the same in here, and you can see here that this furniture is not really modeled correctly, so there's a huge hole here, but that's what I had to work with. So you can do whatever you want here. Check out how these light fixtures are actually made in these cupboards. It could be that the light need to go like something like this. I just turned them slightly outwards so they blow some light out into the to the furniture. So let's see here. Let me disable the residual. So now we have lights coming out from this guy here, and as you can see here, you can, while we are here, we can increase the light from these cupboards. And the reason why it's very blurry here is because it only took 6 seconds to render the whole image, but we're only interested in looking at the light, because as you can see here, everything moves pretty much instantly, and we should avoid all tasks that involves sitting and waiting too much. Of course, we can avoid sit and wait, but yeah. So let's see here. Mares has another question. Why transmission ray depth 8 default? Well, transmission ray, what he talks about is this one, and it's basically I guess a sweet spot the Arnold developers set up for common situations. Obviously, it's not enough if you have let's say a glass inside a glass inside a glass inside a glass, or 4, 5, 6 thick glass layers laid on top of each other. You can actually also get black going. That's actually a debug out to infinity. That is when the transparency depth runs out of bounces inside all the glasses. So you can actually you sometimes you actually need to bump this one up as well, as that is the ceiling. and just pump in some more here. The reason why it's not set to 500 and 500 here is that you are going to sacrifice render time. Um, so um, so they just set it at 8. Obviously, it's not enough for all situations. Just need to be aware that you can and should up the transmission depth from 8 to whatever you need. You can actually do that while you're rendering live. You can go from the 8 here. Let me just go back to 10 here again. The 8 here, and let's say you have a glass vase, and whenever you start to pump this one up, you see more and more and more correct refractive rays go through and propagate correctly through the medium and environment and all that. So just pay attention to that. 8 is a hard-coded default value. If you always run into an issue with this, set it to 16 or whatever you like, and save a max start .max file in your scene folder in your projects. That will always start max up with this custom tweak that you have. I have a max start file. I have some custom tweaks to Arnold, so that's it. I hope that was doing it for the transmission rays. So back to these backlit lights here. I think we covered those. So what are we lagging? Oh yeah, we have these 3 lamps here. Let's see here, they're called 3 lamps. And as you can see, the small caps are lagging. This image here has these 3. So we just, again, split it up, and they are hanging in the residual lights. So now these guys are working. Let me just pick one of them. If I can do something like that. I'm not sure. There we go. And those are spotlights. Has a very wide cone angle. I basically, I'm not aware how he made this. Sort of look like some small area light of some type. But what I did is that I roughly dialed in the same look. You can see here, if I turn the penumbra angle down, they get a very hard line here. So what you want to do is make it a little bit more smooth, something like this. And these lamps starts to get a more natural feel. And the same thing applies here. We can crank them up as much as we want, and we'll look at grading and calibrating all the lights in the end. I'm just going through all the lamps first. So let's see here. I think that's it. I think we actually managed to get through all the lamps, so we can try and switch everything on and start to play a little bit with grading, start to play a little bit with rendering quality. We still have some issues here, Optic X, but again, it took three seconds to render. So while we have this one, I just need to check chat here. Balaskri, hey, wow, I like your black UI. How did you do that? Well, I basically just made it. So, and another thing you can see here, OSL, bitmap lookup. Let me just load this one. I also have it for the OSL editor, and some coloring here. I just like black, So why don't I just and the good thing is that if you note over here, all these dial ins, the background here is just slightly not dark. Uh, um, More dark gray, so you'll always be able to pick these. And the same, uh, it's not the same for ticks here. I don't have that, but I know where the ticks are. So in my current, because right now you can't see it, you can only see it if you hover over it. So you actually need to know the UI in my setup because they are gone rogue. I think you can actually see it. Yeah, it's just light in my monitor. So why don't we go here, customize user interface, colors, save this color. We call this max start UI, and we're going to save it to to the desktop. I just saved it to the desktop. Let me see here. Oops, we had a crash. I tried to. I'm just going to send this bug report here. But now we came to the desktop. So I saved this file, beer/, see, and I will upload it so you can get it. So you don't need to redo it. You can just get mine. I'll do that after the stream, and I'll put it on a GitHub. I'll put it on a GitHub I call Arnold Cafe GitHub. I will make sure that I post the link to this GitHub so it's accessible. I also want to upload OSL shaders, scenes, whatever. So just 2 seconds. Getting a dry mouth here. Soon time to drink. So okay, so I saved that one out. Let's go in and pick up our scene where we left it. So the scene came in with millimeters, and for some reason the guy used state sets. So I'm not using that. Let's check our settings here. Let's go into the render view. Let's check and pick up from where we came from. Yeah, no problem. I'll make sure to give you the link. Actually, I will do that looking forward. So when people ask about files and things, I can just drag them online, and you can get the stuff directly. So it's not giving us anything here because we don't have anything turned on. So I think we came from somewhere like this. And as you can see here, I disabled the denoiser. So this is the image. This is the amount of noise that the denoiser has to try and make a nice image out of. It's kind of impressive in some cases how clean it actually can do it. But of course we need to have slightly better result because you can also see the bush down here. I mean, this looks like a ghost. And now we're kind of like going into more like addressing all the lights so they place nice together and crank up the quality while not completely sacrificing render time. So Um, let's see here. So one thing we can do, I think actually I want to render a slightly better version. So that means we're going to crank up the settings. Let me go 4 and 8 here. Something like this. It should take a couple of minutes while it's processing here. And while it's doing that, I can maybe explain what it is I'm doing here. So the camera AA, if I'm going to disable the adaptive sampling, the render will take a lot longer time. The adaptive sampler is basically looking at the camera AA here and potentially fill in more samples if this threshold is not met. That means that we have a bit of playroom between the bottom camera AA and this potential max AA. That means if someplace over here you can see it starts to get, it's better here, for example, than it is over here. So we have actually these two areas. This area and this area, they do not require the same amount of samples to become clean. And this is where the adaptive sampler comes in, kicks in, helps us focusing on this area more than this area. That's the simple, that's the fast explanation of that. So we are up on 79%, 80%. And the good thing is that the Arnold developers implemented a thing, so I'm actually not sure if it's going to work. Otherwise, we have to wait a couple of minutes again. I have to redo it. Should I actually see here? We now have close to splotch free rendering here. We don't have a lot of stuff. It's not really that easy to detect. And we are beneath 1 minute and 56 seconds. Do pay attention that this is 800 times 480, so we're not rendering the largest possible resolution. One thing I've been playing with, that is that one of the Arnold developers, Declan, he actually wrote a standalone tool that uses an Intel denoiser. So it's not in the application. You have to use an exe file and do a little bit of batch scripting. But it does a really nice job. Actually, it's slightly better than OptiX, and in some cases, it's insanely much better. But it's the same thing. It's running on the GPU and all those things, and it does not require a lot of extra additional layers and an additional AOV. I think it's albedo and normal. Doesn't need C. I think you can do it. So, okay, so we now have a reasonable quality render here. So let's see here what happens if I enable this one. The good thing happened that it just enabled the exposure. If I'm going to add another thing here now, it's going to re-render. So that was the thing I was a bit insecure about. So let's see here. What of these? These are my three master tools for grading: exposure, color correct, and tone mapping. So tone mapping starts on Fulmic. Let's take them from, and you put them in before the light mixer and before the denoiser. Otherwise, it's going to clamp all the values if you put it in after. That means a tone mapper will totally just clamp out all the high intensities here. So the intensities here will look like this, and everything will just look flat. If you put it before, it will maintain the dynamic range. So let's disable this one. We have the exposure here, um, and I like to underexpose things a lot, to see first where all the possible issues is here. So I actually think this is pretty well calibrated. I'm not saying it's perfect, but we can definitely see there's more light intensity coming from here than from up here. And we have some light here. So that's fine. I think we're going to crank up, and you can see here you can crank as much light as you want in, but you obviously you don't want to go overboard. You want to pay attention to the widest area that isn't intended to be completely overexposed. So this area down here, that's fine. But I would be concerned leaving the exposure up here because we have a very hard light here. It's okay down here. I don't like this. I don't like this up here. This is too much. So instantly, I would want to pull this a little bit back, something like here. And if this is the kind of exposure I want to go a little bit above and pull it back with the tone mapper. Let's see here. One good thing for interiors is that you want a bit of contrast. But the downside of contrast, as you can see here, we get very blown out highlights here. So that's one thing to pay attention to, that you may want a very contrasty image, but once you actually set your color correction, you want to go back and play with the lights. So you may have an overall, I don't like this is way over the top, but I'm just explaining something here. So that means that if you for some reason like a contrast value of some point, see something like this is 3. I feel like something around 3, 1.3, 1.2 is good. We have a little bit overblown up here. So what can we do to fix that? Well, we can add a tone mapper. It comes in with Filmic. We can pick the Reinhardt curve here, and it comes in with 1. As you can see here, when I dial this one to 0, it still keeps the overall contrast, but it's picking out all these very over illuminated areas while keeping the image somewhat intact. So I find it like for example here it's perfectly round. Here it's overexposed, and here we basically we clip it off and make it more round. We curve it. I think it was around 7. So something like this. Something like this. I think it was there. So that's it for the tone mapper. So first go in, dial in the exposure, then get some kind of contrast level. This is the master contrast level. You can also adjust them separately. We can make a lot of videos about this on fully textured photorealistic renderers, where we go over all these individual settings here and stuff like offsetting and what it does and what you need to pay attention to if you have a light outside. What kind of feel do you want? Do you want to blow a little bit dark deep blue into it, or what have you. You can make some very interesting coloring scenarios because they split up the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights here. So for this simple interior, run over a contrast of 1.21. You can see this, I feel this feels a little flat. So I want to pump it up a notch, something like this. Of course, when you start to get textures, all kind of textures, we're just dialing in rough scenario here. Once these get textures and reflections, we need to go back here and start to work on these lights. You can see how this actually looks kind of decent. The bed table backlight here, I just, instead of this guy here, where is it? It's there. This guy has a bit of fall off here. I say screw that. We just crank it up and make it completely white here. So that's my artistic interpretation of this. I think 1.0 is stretching it there. I think ceiling spots, I think 2 spots, oh, that's these two here. So we can, of course, crank this one up, and we're going to have the same situation we had when we had to dial it back with the tone mapper. You can add more tone mappers if you want. Nobody says you just have to use the one. So I think something like 0.3, 0.5 there, because that's just how I like it. Under the bed, and as you can see here in the front of the bed here, it starts to illuminate the front of the bed a lot more. And again, this is up to you how you want to dial this in. But once you have categorized your lights here, it makes it a lot easier to navigate and manage these things. So let's take the table lamp. I'm going to go with 1 here. So that's it. I think we want to. I think I'm going to crank up the resolution. I'm going to go like this. I actually don't know what is going to happen now. I think I'm going to save this one because there's a chance it will crash. It might not. I found a loophole, so I think if I start it here first, it will crash. So this is a known bug on my machine. If this should not happen on your machine. I just know it's on my scene, on my machine for some reason. That if I change the resolution, the application simply dies. I'm not so sure why, but that's it. While we wait for this one to start, we'll just read here. What is the workflow for PBR materials like diffuse, roughness, and bump map using OSL, bitmap, and Arnold standard surface? Okay, so I think I want to just wrap this one up, and we can look at some PBR and OSL. So let's see here, it's finished. Just for the sake of this walkthrough here, I really want to make at least one renderer, just to get through all of it. And the thing I did here by adding the lights, adding the light groups, going through them, analyzing them, and grading them is general generally what I would recommend you to do. Um, so let's just stop this one. Something like this. So let's see here. Let me check my render settings. 6, not so sure. I think we're going to go with this. Um, and that should pretty much be it. Let me just render this one. Yeah. So that's going to take a couple of minutes. Um, and while we do that, we can sit and speculate a little bit about the OSL thing, PBR materials. What is the workflow for PBR materials like diffuse roughness and bump map using OSL bitmap? So actually, I wrote a map, um, an OSL map that we can try. We can try and blend two normal maps, and you can see how we work with that. We probably need to go through something like using an HDRI map as a light source, because it also gives us the reflections and all those things. And the nice thing is that much of the OSL stuff we can handle in the viewport. SAP made a very nice job at making sure that um, the whatever we do in PBR realm looks fairly close in the viewport and with Arnold, except of course ray traced refractions and ray traced reflections and advanced GI. SSS and stuff of that nature, volumes. We can obviously do that in the viewport right now. Maybe they're working on it. So um, so um, so that's it. Um, we'll just see here. It's 55. So actually, I think while this is rendering here, it's been rendering a couple of minutes. I think this render will take something like 5 minutes in total. I'll just quickly go outside and cough my lungs up while this finishes, and grab a cigarette and something to drink, and will be back in just a bit. Oh, and I think we can once the image here is finished, we can look at improving the light situation, because it's right now it looks like it's a little bit burned out, but I think we can fix that. So I'll be back. Okay, Yuri, we'll take the other denoiser afterwards. I won't forget. I'll be back in a couple of minutes, and we go through it. Okay, so I think the render is done. 4 minutes 21 seconds. So let's see here. We have the toe mapper. We have a little bit too much going on in the contrast here. I'm paying attention to this area up here. So let's see here. Something like this. This could be a decent starting point for lighting something. Obviously, you need to nurse these values. I'm not going to do that. I'm just setting up the principle here. I guess we can go to use question here using the other denoiser. So I'm going to close this one. Let's see here. I want to go back to debug resolution here. And let's see here. I'm going to save this one. Let's see if we get a crash. We did not get a crash. That's fantastic. Let me close this one down, and we're here. So, and instead of the Optic X denoiser, we have another one. So I'm going to remove this. I think we want to go in here, something like this, 101 speedy render. Let's try and render it. Something like this. Stop it at this one, and it's like the other one. We don't really need to do anything initially, except that we need to look at our render and work with these values here. So basically, it's the patch radius and the search radius, and we need to work with. If the render has insufficient amount of data, that means something like this. It has a tough time to solve it, just like the Optic X one. But in this case, it will create some splotches. So what we need to do is render it a little bit longer and increasing these values here. So I noticed when I worked with it earlier, there's a couple of update bugs. So let's see how it's going to turn out with 1, 0, and 1. So now we render it, and right now it still says 100 down here, but now the denoiser is working. The CPU denoiser is working in the background. It should be working. No, it's not, because it doesn't have enough samples up here. So I'm going to go something like this. I'm actually increasing this back to the default, something like this. I'm not sure if this is going to work. I had some bugs with the my machine is a bit of a Monday machine. So I'm not sure if I can get the CPU denoiser to work in this case. Otherwise, I will clean this scene and do it in another one to show you. So let's see here. Will it give us anything, or will it remain the same? Something like that. So obviously something is a bit off here because I see some very hard pixels, something we shouldn't be seeing, and we are also seeing a little bit of splotches up here. If you see up here, you can see there's a splotch here, 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 and here. I'm not so sure what to say about these. They can be scene related. Maybe I need to restart. Let me see here, but actually it does a fine job here on the default settings. Um, so let me think a little bit here. I think I need to stop it. Um, we can increase this one to 4, um, and we can increase this one to 11. Make the search radius go higher. I actually want to turn this down again. And a thing I didn't mention before is that I have clamping on here. It could be related to that. These, this guy here. Um, so that was actually a debug trick. Let me see here. If this is 10 and this is 10, this is basically like this. This is default. But you can actually make the renders go faster, clean faster, if you lower this indirect max value to 0. If you set it to 0, you will effectively disable all indirect rays. So let me try and go something like this. Yeah. So as you can see here, now it renders all the direct rays super fast. There's no noise, but also we don't have any indirect light coming in. So if I set it to 0.1, we are basically clamping all indirect rays. That is not desired, but also 10 can give a lot of very hot pixels that require a lot of additional samples, specular samples, in order to clean up. So you can play a little bit around with that's typically if you have chrome surfaces, very reflective surfaces that bounce GI around. You can actually lower this one to something like 5. If you still want some of the very rich indirects, but actually you aren't losing that much if you set it to 0.1 compared to 5 for the visual output right here. So you can play a little bit around that. I usually set this one to 1, and it does not make stuff flat. It just makes sure that all the hot pixels are getting won't climb to some ridiculous value. We have one here. I can see it. I can see this one. This one would, for example, take an enormously long time to fix if this was 10. Let's see here what is happening here. Whoops, I think I need to go here. Something like this. Oh, side tracking. Let's try and see if we can get the CPU denoiser to work. It should work. Oh, it might be that it's the lights under here that is contributing to it. They are setting significantly over what they should set. So actually, if we just set this one to 1 and try again, I actually have to restart this one. That's a bit annoying. But these things are work in progress from the Arnold developers. I may need to go to another scene because it could be scene related. If this doesn't work, we can jump to another scene, or We can try and debug it, but I really don't want to sit and debug while we stream. Something like this. See, the hot pixels are disappeared. I think these lights down here, they were cranking out. Yeah, so it was those. So you can see here, the render took 44 seconds. We have some issues around here. We have a fairly uniform image. We have a splotch up here. We have some issues here. So what we can try and do is we can go something like this and see if that improves it. And once we have a base that we're content with, we can try and play a little bit with the search radius. If you open up for more search radius, you're going to phase out these splotches. As you can see here, search radius, we can just read it. Search radius, the area in pixels over which similar neighborhoods are found. The higher, the better. But it will increase the cost of the denoising. And the patch radius drive the softness of the denoising, usually ranging between 0 and 5. Tile size, the size of the image buckets, and the variance. This is basically how much we want to push it through. It's sort of like a mixer. Let's see here what happens. Did this improve the situation a bit? It's denoising right now. So let's see here. Yeah, it improved the situation significantly. We now don't have a lot of stuff going on. It's pretty uniform. It's pretty uniform up here. We do have some issues right here. We do have some issues right here and here. But again, let me remind you, the render took 1 minute and 21 seconds. It's not like it's rendering 1 hour and we're left up with something like this. We have some small issues down here. We have a little bit here. It's basically around the edges. So I think we're good. We're good to go. So I would leave something like this. We could try and stop this one. We could increase the patch radius to 5 and put in 14 here. Hello, P. Grok. What's up? Well, I'm attempting to showcase the CPU denoiser. It looks like it's semi-working here. We can crank the floor. Should we crank the floor 1? We can crank the floor 1 here and 2 there. Something like this. So right now we're just trying to find the sweet spot for not wasting too many CPU and GPU cycles while getting a nice visual. So I did get your scene, Yuri, and I saw those very big splotches, as you remember. But I also think it's because you used, I don't know if you saw the stream, but I started with showing how to avoid the emission GI pollution. And I think some of your excessive splotches has to do with some of that. Of course, I can't be sure, but I think it could be that. Just as you saw that when I cranked up the post, intensity of these lamps that we got those very hot fireflies going. Obviously, that can only go to a certain extent. If you really need to crank these things up, I would say that this is still rendering. I would say leave these exposure settings here, leave those out in the start, and work on the lamps themselves. Just select the lamp and push the exposure up on the lamp, so you get nearer the sweet spot of the intensity of the light you want down here, and then address it with some subtle increases and decreases. Because as you saw, the CPU denoiser freaked out when we cranked it to 5. I think it was this one. So let's see here. This should be better. There is some noise in there. There's quite some noise, but it should be okay for the CPU denoiser we to deal with. We cranked up the patch radius 2 notches, and we upped the search radius from 9 to 14. And as you can see here, we're now close to having a clean image. So I think I hope that answers your maybe some of your questions, Yui. How to work with the CPU denoiser. You basically you evaluate your camera array and your adaptive sampling samples, and you start from the bottom and you add a little bit, while you also add a little bit of patch radius and search radius. Of course, it's going to take a little bit longer. This one took 2 minutes and 26 seconds. Looks somewhat decent, and for 2 minutes, I think it's okay with all these light sources here. Lots of GI bouncing around. So I think that's it. I'm going to save this one. Let's save it. And change the subject completely. Let's see here. This is my max start file. Something like this. My favorite plane. Something like this. High quality. Always high quality. I always use high quality viewport here. So we need some kind of kick in here. Let's see here. This is a map I wrote. HDRI environment and experimental. I forgot what it is, but so there you have it. Sometimes we can't always remember what we do. Combination room, Portland landing. What is this? Let's see what this map does. Yeah, looks pretty decent. Something like that. And we have our material editor here, physical material. So in Maya had a light list panel. I don't know. 3D Studio Max had it. You mean the light mixer here? Yeah, it should be in Maya, but actually we also have in 3D Studio Max we have an actual light lister here. So if you let me just for the sake of it, I could have just post refresh. We actually also have a light lister here. So you can use the Arnold thing here. And if you have a lot of lights, lamps, and what have you, and you set in color correct, and for example, this image here, you don't need to click all the lamps. You can you can go to them here, and it will select the light over here. And obviously, you have all the quick slots here, the exposure, the intensity, the samples for Arnold interiors. I like something like this always. Usually, this is only for volume rendering. We can do some volume rendering as well if you want that. But that's it. And you can turn them on and off. So we have both. I'm going to delete these because we're going to look at some some shading here. So pay attention to what I'm doing here. You can see this plane starts to reflect this environment here. That means we're live. We're good to go. One thing I like to do is enable force this show realistic viewport material in viewport and disable the other one, because you can potentially run into something where you where the maps are going to get baked, and that means you will see checkered tiles forever and ever, and everything will just slow down. So right now, in theory, let's see here, we have this one. So, oops, is this going to crash now? Nope, it's not going to crash. So we're rendering on the CPU. I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller, something like this. So we have these two, something like this. It's dragging a bit around, so I want to show you that under Arnold we have I only have 12 buckets. So right now it's using let me see here, we should actually have save UI threads 1. In my case, I actually need 3. Also will not update so fast here. It will drag around and be a little bit slow. So we have a standard scenario here. This is the CPU. I'm just checking my filter here. That's good. Everything is standard. Good. So why don't we pop up this one? I'm going to find some normal maps. Just have patience with me. I think we are going to pick this one. Save image as something like this, and we have another interesting image. It could be something like this. Save image as something like this. And just so you just so you pay attention, this is highly unorthodox. I'm using JPG images here. So we have an OSL bitmap lookup. Go to the desktop, load this one, and once you work with this, and if you have some giant thumbnails like this, and you keep piping things up, and you have a giant noodle, and if you move something around in one, all the changes going to refresh the material. So what I do is I disable the thumbnail rendering, and everything will be nice and fast. We already got a renderer going here, and we have our viewport going here, and we have a renderer here going to. I just need to fix my second monitor, something like this. So so we have the bump map here, the bump slot. This is actually also for normals, and in Max it is like this, that we need to add in a normal bump node here, and if we want to see it, we need to push in. You can see all the small JPG artifacts here. Looks like an ocean or something. It's quite horrible. Actually, if this was a raw image, all these pixels would be like a mirror, and we would only see this guy up here. So anyways, we have this one here, and I can see it's flipped. So that's interesting. Let me just close this one down. So we have one map here, and I want to load in another map here. So that was this one. And so for normal map, you can go to the vector or the color here. I would go for vector. Let me see here, add vector. So it could be something like this, something like this. I need to close this one down, make it a little bit smaller, so we maintain sanity. Something like this. I need to do like this. Okay. If we add these up, we get some kind of flat, incoherent, not really pleasing looking. Adding one to the other really destroys the normals here. Sometimes you have a like a fabric of some kind, and you want to add another normal. This is not the way to do it. We want to go to my rebel pack here. We want to pick this normal node here. So, and this rebel pack here, this is something I'm developing. All these maps here are part of the rebel pack. So if you want this, let me know. It's currently sitting in Discord. It's this one. I have. It's called Arnold converter. We have it. There's a guy here that references this node. I have. It's actually a little bit unstructured, but if you scroll up a bit, the Arnold converter should be up here somewhere. Let me see. Oh, the Rebel pack. Yeah, there it is. So it's actually linked in only in this channel here. I do have a web page. Let me just bring it up. Let me see here. I'm doing this off screen. Arnold converter. So we have this page here. This is basically a project where you can convert V-Ray materials, Arnold to Arnold Corona materials, V-Ray Sky, V-Ray normal, blah 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 blah, Corona, all kinds of things down here. and have a small support list, and you can download this Arnold converter. But actually, the file here, the rebel pack, will substitute this Arnold converter here, because it also contains OSL maps. It contains this Arnold light filter here. Arnold light filter is basically a post-ambient occlusion. So you can see here, this is almost real time. So you can make those V-Ray, cheap V-Ray look renderers, what almost looks like you're only using ambient occlusion. But the trick is with this modifier here, that you can wrap it on top of a skylight. So and this one is also part of the Rebel pack. So instead of using this add node here, we can use this reoriented normal blend. The source for this node here, if we go in and look at it, is actually fabricated by two guys called Colin and Stephen Hill. They exposed this function here on the web for everyone to use. And it's basically taking in two vectors, two normal maps, and blend them in a better space. Obviously, you can see here I have a vector A and a vector B. I take the input A and in B and multiply it with a vector that has a larger dimension, and they are getting offset, and we take the A and multiply it with the dot product of A and B divided by the C channel of A minus B, and then we move it into the correct space again. So we have some UI entries here, and basically all this down here is all the UI here. So what this does is that we should be able to get a better normal B. We should be able to get a better representation. As you can see here, there's more juice in this. It's more contrasty. What happens if we render this? I'm actually not so sure. Yeah, I actually think there's a bug in this as it is right now. But you can see it from this angle here. The two maps, just for sake of this tutorial, I'm going to go like this. So as you can see here, these two maps are now translating one-to-one. They are not destroyed. And that is basically what this map here does. It preserves both maps, so you can have a couch with some couch normal things, and you can have a wrinkle map, and you can have a much better blend mode. So you can use stuff like I don't know, like the composite map. Let me find it up here. It's composite map, something like screen or something like overlay is usually common hacks to blend normals, but they will be inferior. They will not look as good as this one. And actually, Arnold has a layer node, layer float, layer RGBA. Let's see here. Yes, the Arnold layer map here, if you want to make add-in layers, actually has way in the bottom has a normal map blend mode, and as far as I can see, the code I'm using and the normal map function in the Arnold layers is completely identical. So I think they use the same code. It's also I haven't seen any others that are as good as this. So so that's it for the normal map. Let me just bring up something here. I wanted to address the roughness. So I have that's going to be sketching. I'm actually now moving on 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 dangerous waters. Yes, OSL bitmap can read TX. Let me show. Um, so if you look at this one, this is a nasty JPEG. It's this one. It's these two here. Don't use JPEGs, but if you have them and you need to optimize for memory and all that stuff, um, um, please go ahead and convert them. So what I have is that I can just pick these two, right click them, go to send to, and I actually have an Arnold DDS to PNG converter. I have an Arnold JPG dummy generator, and I have this Arnold TX converter. So this Arnold TX converter is now, I just pick them and it spits out two TX maps here of these two here. So now we have two TX maps here, and we're going to go to max again, and it was the HCFK, and it was this one. So I'm going to load that one, and as you can see here, the space actually flipped, so that's good. I'm going to go over here, do like this. Instead, I'm going to close down the reflections so we don't get annoyed by that. So this is actually the TX map. You can see here, this one has the extension TX, and it's actually also showing in the viewport. So that's one of the cool features of some of SAP's new implementations, that these TX textures are actually also showing in the viewport. So that's quite good. We can't use the blur call, but I built a Fibonacci blur that actually I made it for a VFX company. I made it for free for them. I usually work for free. I always work for free. I never ask people for money. So typically people come and they ask for things, and I just made it for these guys. So and that blur actually works in the viewport without MIP mapping, because the great thing about TX is that, for example, if this texture was 900 megabytes and we only saw this amount of it in the viewport or in the render in some kind of animation, it would only absorb the lowest map level, and thus only take a hit on memory in a few kilobytes. But as soon as you move closer, it's stepping up in the MIP maps, and you get full bore memory footprint when it's wall to wall. So that's one of the great things about TX and viewport. So that's it. So I guess that was TX. So let's see here. What do we have here? What do we have here? I have oh yeah, front back. Front back is actually quite a nice map as well. So you can see here we have we have a normal map on this plane. This plane is infinitely thin. Um, but you can't easily map the front side and the back side. So I just took I was very nice to Zap, so wrote this was him that made it, but it's actually not him that made it. I made this one, uh, but it's basically his. He just made a call to back facing. This is a really nice OSL function that can split up all faces in the front and the back, and it also includes alpha, so you can have two different transparency situations on a single plane. So you can make some funny things with that. But let me show it here. So it comes with some debug colors. As you can see, it's red and green. It's these colors over here. So now it should be blue, and it is. So let me just move this down here, something like this. Let's take something like a texture. Let's take a candy and a texture or a checker. So we put the checker on the top, and we put the candy on the bottom, something like this. And as you can see here, the map here is now perfectly translating. So, and this also applies for the cutout opacity map. So you can wire in two different black and white images, and you can see through it through one type of image and see through it on the other side. So you can actually also light things. A lamp goes through and it hits the front face, but it's showing something on the other side. So you can do a lot of nice things with this instead of having to make a box. It's practical. So what do we have here? We have the triplanar map. Let me go over here. Oh yeah, we're going to do the roughness now. So let me see here. I need to find. This is where it gets dangerous. I need to find my scene folder or is it under sketching on the Macs? No. What is it? It's not the flow map. Ocean. Oh yeah, also has some ocean stuff. Snooker stuff. Tyflow. It's not Tyflow. Temp. No, it's not on the temp projects. Oh yeah, it's on the projects. It's on the projects 2020. There, something like this. I found it. This is my triplanar map. So I'm going to delete this one. So let's try and load some generic mesh here. I'm going to crank this one up. I'm going to add this one. And we were done with the front and back map. So we move that out of the place. And this is my triplanar map. First I want to wire it to the base color. It's very bright in here. Environment. Something like this. I always get the wrong one. Something like this. So as you can see here, this map here, I didn't add any UV wrap modifiers. I didn't do anything, but it's impossible to detect seams. There are no seams, and I'm using a texture here. Um, and the texture is perfectly tiling. I also have another map where you can make perfectly tiling textures. I actually integrated it in one of the earlier versions of the tri-planar map, so you can automatically, it's quite powerful. There are no other tri-planar map, not from Chaos Group, not from anyone, as far as I know, that can do what my map can do. They can do some other things, but they can't do that. I can also extract an albedo, remove shadows, and stuff like that with another version. So, but anyways, this is my tri-planar map, and I brought that one up because I wanted to talk a bit about roughness. Um, as this map is decent for doing roughness. And actually also this map can go instances. So if we go like this, it will look differently on all these four here. Let me pull this one over here. I don't think we need to touch this one right now. So as you can see here, they all look slightly different. Has a black spot there, missing there. This is different. So you can quickly texture things without having to do a lot of let me just show an example here. Something like this. Something like this, something like this. So normally you would unwrap something like this. Otherwise, you would have some issues with textures. Stretching and stuff, but with my trap planner we just go here, add it, and it's perfect. So that's it, and it works in the viewport, and it works, of course, it works in Arnold here as well. And as you can see here, it's the same, so everything is the same. So that's quite useful. And I have a small override mode here, so you can see the different projections. Green here and green on the back side, blue on the top, blue on the bottom, red and red. So we basically just add in three, and you can see here. We can sharpen this area here, add in some gamma, and we also have the standard UV checker, so you can check your models and stuff like this, and it also works over on this one here. So, and you can scale, uniform, rotate. Obviously you want to make something like this and everything is rotated 360 randomly on these things here. You can detect the seams. So the roughness, let's try and check that. Let me see here. Mahesh says something. How to save animated video that's generated in the viewport. Yeah, can look at that afterwards. Let's see here. So instead of let me delete this one, something like this. So we have a matte surface here. We have this one. We have a reflection. Instead of diffuse, we're going to pipe this one to the roughness map, something like this. And as you can see, nothing really happens here. So we need to pipe up. You can see here, this is the metal map. We have bit of imperfections here. This is of course the chrome state. We can go to the roughness map here. And for this we need a color tweak, tweak levels, something like this, and we need to play a little bit around with the values, something like this, something like that. I may need to increase the IOR, something like this. And as you can see here, we now have some nice scratchy, I don't know, metal or whatever. And you can also use this to drive the normals. So we're going to pipe this one in as a normal, or actually we don't need that. We can just pipe it in as a bump map, something like this, and you get a nice bumpy effect. It might be too strong, so we go down here, close it down a little bit, just go ever so slightly, something like this could work. So that was the roughness. How to save animated video that generated in the viewport. Okay, so let's say we have this guy here. Oh, that's not what I want to do. I'm going to keyframe this one. I'm going to move this one over here. So we have this this thing here animated. We go to Tools, Preview, grab Viewport, Create Preview Animation. So and basically you just go in here and it's defaulting to save a preview AVI. You have image quality here. So make a couple of render tests and see where it's sufficient. Remember to set the high Q, the viewport you need, standard, performance DX, or high quality. What kind of shading mode you want. If you want to disable bones, particles, background, you can do that, and you can crank up the resolution here. So just pay attention that it will use the this is 640 times 480. It will use the render resolution here. So what you want to do, if you want big, you go like this instead. Oh, that's not the right one. Preview, create preview. Okay, do we need to do like this? I'm not sure why it didn't update. Yeah, I had to render, so that's a thing we can tell the developers. They need to just grab it here, so we don't need to render before it kicks in. So you just set your resolution, just render one time, make your animation, and save it out here. What I want to do, what I typically do is I save to either PNG or excuse me, or EXR. You can also go to JPEG and assemble the image sequence in a post application. I'm using Natron. It's a Nuke clone, just free. So, but you can save it to AVI, and basically here just create, and it starts to tick, 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 go through the frames here and save it out. So that's so that's it. um, what else do we have? Um, I don't know. I think if we just look back, we made the interior. We did a bit of lightning. We did a little bit of OSL normals. Some of the maps are in my Rebel pack. I will update my website so you get all those maps. Um, Let me just attach that one there. Um, Let me see here. Go with you. Um, and we worked a little bit with some of my maps. Let's see what this one does. Oh yeah, so this is my flake map. It basically creates a lot of Verona tiles. You can use this as a car flake shader. Let me remove the bump here. Let me add this one as a bump. Something like this. So you can see here, you got all these Verona tiles here. Let me go to something like this. Let me turn out the reflections. And again, as the triplanar, this map works in world space. So it no matter what you do on any model, you don't need to unwrap it. You don't need to do any wrapping. You can just slap this one on, and it will always work perfectly. And it has some practical seat stuff here. We have a scale, as you can see here, coordinate space world. So that means that the the tiles or the bricks here, they're stationary and the object goes through it. It can be useful for many things. Object-based space is the preferred, and we also have UV space, so you obviously need a UV input on the output on the object. And we can gradually increase the weight of the ankles. Basically, all these colors are turning ankles. So let me and we need this one for code bump as well. I actually think we need the normal map. So let me see here. Where's the normal map? There's the normal map. Let's go here, here, something like this. Let me crank up the reflection, the metalness, and something like this. So instead of this moving, I'm going to delete these keyframes. Delete selected keyframes. I'm going to set a new size here, 400. Let's go here, keyframe. I need angle, so we go 360, something like this. Oh, shoot. I made an error. delete, something like this, there, keyframe, 360, okay. Okay, so this is now running real time in the viewport, and I'm going to pull that one out. And basically what we're doing here is we are turning all, you can see this looks like fragments, and it actually is. You can see it looks better here. But they're turning the reflective angle. So I'm switching to the flex shader here, move over here, so we can start to play a little bit around with the size, the density. We can scatter them out so there's only a few here and there. And the randomize is the strength of it. So now we go full galore. Something like this. And we're always, and we can go in here, preview. We can put on some bloom. Let's see here, strength. You can see here these small glittery things down here. Let's see, radius down to 1. Need some more strength. Something like this. I'm not saying this looks good, but it's to illustrate the purpose of the shader here. Something like this. Maybe that's a little bit too crazy. Something like that. So I think that's it for today. I enjoyed this stream. I hope you did too. And I think we came around a couple of subjects. We had definitely had some more questions today than we had last time. The time is 20:11, so that means we are just over 2 hours. That's fine for today, I think. Yeah, so the next one will be next Friday, and you're very welcome to come and join again and ask some more questions. And we can do some more OSL stuff. We can also try and do some PBR shading with using like ambient occlusion stuff and like tear and wear and layering colors and layering bump maps and whatever you do in Substance Designer, Substance Painter, to get those things going in the viewport, because we can do that. Of course, we can't. There's a lot of convenient tools in there that we have to manual out. Some of the stuff we can't do, but some of the stuff you can't do in Substance. So we can do stuff with OSL you cannot do in Substance. You cannot get around that. For example, this. You cannot do this. And you will never be able to do this in Substance unless they port in some kind of generic OSL coding that is going to port over real time. Because to be able to do this, where you have no visible seams and no UV going, obviously you can't do that in something like Substance. So in here we have a little bit of freedom. So that's it, and we can actually also use this to our advantage when we start to shade with Arnold, shade volume stuff. World space is a very, very powerful thing, and when working with field shaders. We can also talk a little bit about field shaders if you want that, or volumes. But I think next time, for next Friday, I want to do some real nice PBR metal wear and tear and rust and marks and all that, and we won't use cheap bitmaps taken from the internet. We want to generate them self with noises and OSL noises. And I can show you some of my OSL coded noises that are very unique. We can layer them and we can do all kinds of things. But I think we will pick up on PBR for the next Friday. So with that, I hope you have a fantastic evening or day or whatever you're doing, and I'll be go and take care of my girlfriend and the cats that we have left. Have a nice morning, Grog and Marhes, and thank you for the questions and sweet dreams.